we are back with the Dr. Joe Show with Blake Reichenbach.
Right? He'll get there. He'll get there.
I tried.
It's great.
Doing the best I can.
That's right. It's your I am. And you know what? It doesn't matter because we clearly really enjoy and respect Blake and value him. So, you get, anyway, I'm not going to go there anymore. So, so this is just so encouraging because we live in a world right now where, first of all, community has been transformed due to COVID. A community is not the way community was. It doesn't mean it's not as good. It is, in some ways, it's actually been expanded because we now have communities all over the world through formats like this and platforms like Zoom and other things. But what was the community like that you were growing up in? Did it embrace this enthusiasm, or did it like give you pause to think, or what was all that about? Kentucky.
So I'll say that the community I grew up in embraced the parts of my enthusiasm that it liked. Yeah. So I grew up in a really small town called Stanford, Kentucky. Total population, I think, is right around 3,000 people, but it's also in a very, very large county. So that's 3,000 people who are very well dispersed. But, Stanford, the last time I looked at census data, it was, I believe, 86% Caucasian, 96% Protestant, very, very homogenous, very uniform in a lot of ways. And in communities like that, where there is a lot of homogeneity, there also tends to be a lot of, encouragement to conform. Because if you, buck the rules, if you push back against the set norms of that community, everybody knows, right? Because the line of communication's not all that long, and there's quite a bit of stigma, for pushing against those boundaries. And when people do arrive in the community who do, veer off away from the norms of it, they tend to become a point of conversation in town. And so I always felt like, I can't be as gung-ho about some of the things that I'm interested in, or, what I want to do, because people just aren't going to get it. And they, it could become a point of conversation. And in a small Southern town, being a topic of conversation is rarely a good thing. So, growing up in that environment, I spent a lot of time as a kid just forming those communities in my imagination. My MO was to get my Walkman CD player, put it in a fanny pack, and go jump on a trampoline, which those Walkman CD players and that much movement didn't work well, but that's what I did. And I would just go out there and daydream, and do all of my plotting, all of my planning, all of my scheming, and imagining the community that I didn't feel like I had access to in person. And it wasn't really until I moved away for college that I realized, like, A, there were more opportunities that I gave my small town credit for, but also B, finding that community that was an admirable goal. And with the I am approach, I was doing the best that I could at the time. But as I've gotten older and had more experience and developed more resources, now it's at that point where it's like, okay, value of community, how can we make this something that's more attainable for the weird kids like me who grew up in a rural area and want to find that connection of other people who get excited.
Yeah, it is remarkable how many communities do not embrace that, and they miss out on so much. They miss out on the remarkable people that they have right there. But that's their I am, right? A community has an I am as well. It's doing the best it can. So do you feel that you're influencing your community? I mean, you've created a global one, which is cool. But are you sort of a topic of conversation back in your home?
I don't think I'm as much of a topic of conversation back in my hometown as I feared growing up. You know, I'm sure that there are still people who will go to the grocery store and say, "Are you friends with Kay and Fred's grandson on Facebook? Did you see what he was posting?" I'm sure those conversations happen, but you know, I, I I I don't think it's that big of a point of conversation. And I definitely feel like in the community that I'm in now, which is a little ways down the road from where I grew up, I am having more of that influence and having some more of those conversations. But so far, it's been a good thing to be a topic in those conversations rather than, small town gossip.
Yeah, not so bad. Not so bad at all. Um, we've got a few minutes left today. The IM approach, we remember, is saying we're always doing the best we can, influenced by four domains: your home domain, the social domain, the biological domain of your brain and body, and the IC domain, how I see myself, how I think other people see me. We've actually been speaking a lot about all of these domains. The idea that depending on the community you're in, when somebody presents an idea and another person goes, or that's incredible, that will have an effect on your biological domain through the IC domain. This person sees me as amazing, which just makes you feel different. Because those four domains interconnect, a small change can have a big effect. You don't need to change everything. Small change can have a big effect. So Blake, I'm curious, what small change can you recommend to our listeners, given what you're talking about with Howdy Curiosity?
Yeah, so the small change that comes to mind for me is one that I actually implemented, I guess around the time the pandemic started. Um, and it may sound a little bit contradictory on the surface for someone who's launching an online platform this fall. But for me, the small change that I think has had the most significant impact on me is putting my phone on do not disturb mode 30 minutes to an hour before getting in bed. And then using that time where I would be sitting and scrolling to either do a little more journaling about, what went well in the day, what stressed me during the day, or to just stretch and give my body some much needed movement. I spend so much time here in this office in a desk chair that I bought secondhand after a hospital closed down that my hips, my spine, they need that little bit of stretch. But it's been such a small change and such a small ritual in my nightly routine, but it has helped me detach from the stress and the noise of social media and sleep better and be a little bit more limber, which is always fantastic.
Mark, I see you nodding your head. Have you ever been able to do that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
So morning ritual is very similar for me. It's
Yeah.
very important that I've got my book of the Stoics and I read my passage every day and I try to stretch, hydrate, and not look at the phone right away. And once I was able to get, oh man, it's a game changer, and it is a small change, Blake. I'm with you 1,000. I might add the 30 minutes before bed now, and that's why I think I was probably unconsciously nodding. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm doing it. He's got me. I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, that's a great small change. The other thing about the IM, second truth, is because everybody's interested in what you think or feel about them, which affects their biological domain. Because it feels different if you feel respected or disrespected. And you're part of someone's home and social domain. This means you control no one, you influence everyone. You get to choose the kind of influence you want to be. Blake Reichenbach, what kind of influence do you want to be?
I want to be the kind of influence that motivates folks to be curious about the things that bring them joy. I've often described myself as more of a listener than a talker. And so, regardless of how things go with Howdy Curiosity, uh, I want to be influencing people by being that person where if you come to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, where I'm not going to say, okay, I'm going to say, ooh, okay, tell me more.
Yeah.
What is it about that excites you? Why is it that you're thinking about doing it that way? Give me more of this. Let me build up that motivation.
That would be great. We can do that for each other all the time. Blake, thanks so much. Everything you're doing. Folks, we will see you next week. Tom, Mark, we're back. Bye
Till
then.
next week.
See you next week.
Rush the kindness, rush with madness. Is it sadness or just a show?